In a small village surrounded by wide green fields and a thick, quiet forest, a young boy named Sam lived with his father, Mr. Brown. The village was peaceful, with simple houses made of stone and thatched roofs. Sam and his father lived in a small cottage at the edge of the village. Their house was modest, but it was cozy, with a little garden filled with flowers and vegetables. They didn't have much, but they made do with what they had. Sam was a cheerful boy, always ready to help his father. He had short brown hair and sparkling blue eyes. His smile was bright, and he had a way of making people feel at ease. Every day, Sam worked alongside his father, tending to their animals and caring for the crops. They had chickens, cows, and a few goats. Sam loved to feed the chickens and collect the eggs. Sometimes, when his chores were done, he would run through the fields or climb the trees in the nearby woods. His father, Mr. Brown, was a hard-working man. He had big hands and strong arms. His skin weathered from years of working the land. He was kind and always made sure Sam knew the importance of hard work and honesty. "We may not have riches, Sam," Mr. Brown would say, "but we have each other, and that's worth more than anything money can buy." Sam believed every word his father said. He loved their simple life. They didn't have much, but they had each other and the beauty of nature around them. The forest was Sam's favorite place. He would often wander through it, exploring the trees and watching the animals. It felt like a peaceful escape, a place where Sam could think and dream. But one day, things began to change. One cold morning, Sam woke up early as usual. He ran to his father's room, excited to start the day. But when he opened the door, he was shocked. Mr. Brown was lying in bed, pale and weak. His face was flushed with fever, and he coughed heavily. "Father, what's wrong?" Sam cried, rushing to his side. "I'm just feeling a bit sick, Sam," Mr. Brown said in a weak voice. "Don't worry, I'll be fine soon." But as the days passed, Mr. Brown didn't get better. He stayed in bed, unable to work. Sam had to take care of everything on his own: the farm, the animals, the crops. It was too much for one boy to handle. He worked from sunrise to sunset, trying his best to keep everything in order. The vegetables in the garden weren't growing well, and the chickens needed more food. The cows had to be milked, but Sam wasn't strong enough to do it all. He did what he could, but it wasn't enough. As the days went by, the situation grew worse. Their food ran low, and the money from selling vegetables at the market barely covered the cost of more supplies. One evening, Sam sat down at the kitchen table, looking at the empty bread basket. His stomach growled, but there was nothing left to eat. His father was still too sick to help. Sam felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. I don't know what to do, he thought. I can't fix everything by myself. The next day, after finishing his chores, Sam decided to take a walk in the forest. He needed a break from everything. The trees were tall, and the air was fresh, and for a moment, Sam forgot about the problems waiting at home. As he wandered deeper into the forest, he heard a soft hoot. Hoot, hoot. Sam stopped and looked around. He saw a small owl sitting on a branch, watching him with bright, kind eyes. It was a beautiful bird, with soft feathers and sharp, intelligent eyes. "Hello, little owl," Sam said, his voice soft. "I don't have much to offer, but I'm glad to see you." The owl blinked, then tilted its head. To Sam's surprise, it spoke. "I know your troubles, Sam," the owl said. "Your father is sick, and you are struggling. But don't worry, I can help." Sam stared at the owl in disbelief. "You can help me? But how?" "I can provide food for you and your father," the owl said. "Every night, if you visit the old oak tree near the river, I will leave food for you. But you must promise me something. Keep this a secret, and always be kind to the creatures of the forest." Sam hesitated. He wasn't sure if this was a dream, but he had nothing to lose. "I promise," he said. "I'll be kind." The owl gave a soft hoot, and with that, it flew away, disappearing into the trees. Sam stood there for a moment, unsure of what had just happened, but feeling a spark of hope. That night, Sam went to the oak tree near the river, just as the owl had said. When he arrived, he was amazed. There, at the base of the tree, were small bundles of food: bread, apples, carrots, and potatoes. It was exactly what they needed. Sam's heart raced with joy. He gathered the food and hurried back home, making sure to keep the secret. When he arrived, his father was still in bed, looking weak, but not as bad as before. "Where did you get this, Sam?" Mr. Brown asked, surprised. "I just found it, Father," Sam said, not wanting to reveal the owl's gift. "I don't know how, but I'm glad we have food." They ate together that night, and for the first time in days, Sam felt full. He went to bed with a sense of relief, knowing they would survive for a little while longer. Each night, Sam returned to the oak tree. Every time, there was more food waiting for him. He kept the secret, not telling anyone about the owl. As the days passed, Sam's father began to feel better. The food from the owl helped them both regain strength. And slowly, things on the farm began to improve. As Mr. Brown's health improved, he started to notice changes. The house felt warmer, the garden looked better, and there was more food on the table. Sam seemed happier and stronger than he had been in weeks. One evening, Mr. Brown asked, "Sam, how are we getting so much food? Where is all of this coming from?" Sam smiled, but he didn't say anything. "I've just been working harder, Father. That's all." But Mr. Brown was still curious. He decided to follow Sam the next night to see where the food was really coming from. That evening, after Sam left, Mr. Brown quietly slipped out of the house and followed his son into the woods. When they reached the oak tree, Mr. Brown watched as Sam gathered the food. Just as Sam turned to leave, Mr. Brown stepped forward and called out, "Sam, what is going on?" Sam froze, caught in the act. "Father, I didn't want you to know," Sam said, looking down. "I promised the owl not to tell anyone. It's been helping us." The owl flew down from the tree and landed on the ground in front of them. "I have been helping your son," the owl said. "He is kind and pure of heart. But now that you have found out, I will teach you both a lesson." The owl explained that it could no longer provide food for Sam and his father. Instead, it would teach them how to live in harmony with nature. The owl showed them how to grow crops in the forest, how to find food in the woods, and how to use the land responsibly. It taught them how to use the forest's resources without taking more than they needed. At first, Sam and his father struggled. The work was hard, and they didn't know how to use the forest's gifts. But slowly, they learned. They planted seeds, gathered fruits, and found new ways to care for the land. The lessons were simple, but powerful. They learned to live in balance with nature, and over time, their farm grew stronger. Sam and his father worked side by side every day, learning how to care for the forest. The owl had shown them how to plant seeds in the rich soil near the riverbank, and how to use rainwater to nourish their crops. It also taught them how to gather fruits from the trees, roots from the ground, and herbs from the forest floor. Slowly, Sam and Mr. Brown began to understand the language of nature, listening to the wind, feeling the sun, and watching how the land responded to their care. Mr. Brown was amazed by the changes. The crops grew stronger, the animals seemed healthier, and their home became brighter with each passing day. "I never knew the forest could give us so much," Mr. Brown said one evening as he sat outside, watching the sunset. He had always been a man of the land, but now he had a new respect for the forest and its hidden treasures. Sam smiled, feeling proud of their progress. "The owl has taught us so much, Father. We're learning to live with the forest, not just from it." They worked together in harmony, planting new crops like corn and beans, and collecting wild fruits like apples and berries. They made soups from the vegetables, used the herbs to make teas, and even found natural remedies for Mr. Brown's health. Each day was a step forward, and each night Sam still went to the oak tree where the owl continued to leave food. But one evening, the owl did not appear. Sam waited by the oak tree for hours, looking around in confusion. He wondered what had happened. Had the owl stopped helping them? He felt a pang of worry in his chest. The next day, as Sam and Mr. Brown were working in the garden, the owl appeared. It flew down from a tree and landed softly in front of them. The owl looked at Sam and his father, its wise eyes filled with both kindness and seriousness. "I will not be leaving food for you anymore," the owl said. "You have learned many things, but now I must teach you one final lesson. It is time for you to stand on your own." Sam and his father both felt a little nervous. They had relied on the owl's gifts for so long that the idea of having to manage on their own seemed a little scary. But Sam knew that they were strong enough to face whatever came their way. "Don't worry, Sam," the owl said, noticing the boy's hesitation. "You have already learned how to work with the land, how to use nature's gifts, and how to be patient. Now, it is time to trust yourself." Mr. Brown stood up, looking at Sam with pride. "We've come this far because of the lessons we've learned. We don't need to rely on the owl anymore. We can do this." The owl nodded and spread its wings. "You are ready, both of you. Remember, true wisdom comes not from what is given to you, but from what you learn and share." With those final words, the owl flew away into the sky, disappearing into the trees. Sam and his father stood in silence for a moment, looking at each other with new understanding. They were ready. In the weeks that followed, Sam and Mr. Brown continued to work hard on the farm. They no longer waited for food to appear at the oak tree. Instead, they used all the skills they had learned from the owl. They planted more crops, gathered herbs, and took care of their animals with even more care than before. The land was thriving, and so were they. The village began to notice the change in Sam and his father. Other villagers had been struggling with their own farms and homes, just as Sam had when his father was ill. Some were curious about the sudden growth of the crops in Sam's garden and how healthy the animals seemed. Slowly, word spread that Sam and his father had found a way to live in harmony with the forest. One day, a woman named Clara, who lived a few houses down, came to Sam's door. She was tall, with dark hair tied back in a loose bun, and her eyes were kind. Clara had heard of the changes on Sam's farm and wanted to learn more. "Sam, I've heard about how you and your father have been growing such strong crops and taking care of the land so well. Can you teach me? My garden hasn't been growing at all, and my animals are weak. I'm not sure what to do." Sam smiled and welcomed Clara inside. "Of course, I'd love to show you what we've learned," he said. He explained how they had learned from the owl to work with the forest and the earth, not against it. He showed Clara how to plant crops properly, how to use rainwater, and how to care for the animals in a way that kept them healthy and happy. As Sam and Clara worked together, Mr. Brown spoke with some of the other villagers, sharing the lessons they had learned as well. Slowly, the entire village began to change. More people came to learn from Sam and Mr. Brown, and soon the village was filled with gardens full of healthy vegetables, strong animals, and people who worked together in harmony with the land. Months passed, and the village grew more prosperous. The villagers, inspired by Sam and his father, began to work together in new ways. They helped each other build better homes, grow healthier crops, and share resources. The once struggling village became a place of abundance and happiness. One day, as Sam walked through the village, he noticed something different. The people were smiling, laughing, and working together. The farms were thriving, and the air felt fresh and full of life. Sam realized that the true gift the owl had given them was not just food, but the ability to understand the balance of nature and the importance of working together. As Sam looked around at the thriving village, he saw his father standing by the garden, smiling with pride. Mr. Brown had recovered fully from his illness, and they both had become respected members of the village for their wisdom and hard work. Sam knew that the lessons of the owl would stay with him forever. He had learned that true happiness did not come from things, but from working together, being kind, and respecting the world around him. And most importantly, he had learned that no matter how hard life became, there was always a way to find hope and strength if you worked hard and trusted the wisdom of the world. One evening, as the sun began to set, Sam stood by the oak tree near the river, reflecting on everything that had happened. He missed the owl, but felt grateful for everything it had taught them. Just as he was about to leave, he heard a familiar soft hoot. Hoot! Hoot! Sam turned around, and there, perched on a branch of the oak tree, was the owl. It looked at him with its wise, knowing eyes, and Sam smiled. "You have done well, Sam," the owl said. "You have learned what you needed to learn. The village is thriving, and you have shared your knowledge with others. I am proud of you." Sam felt a warm sense of pride in his heart. "Thank you, owl. I will never forget what you taught us." The owl nodded, its wings spreading wide. "Remember, Sam, the world always gives back to those who care for it. Never stop sharing, never stop learning, and never stop being kind." With that, the owl flew into the sky, disappearing into the trees once again. Sam stood there for a long time, watching the sunset. He knew that no matter what, he and his father would always have the strength to face whatever came their way. The village was strong, and so were they. And together, they had learned the most important lesson of all: to live with kindness, respect, and balance in the world.